Good afternoon, Decluttering Club. Sarah Mueller here. Today, I want to talk about why is it so hard to let go of our things? Why is decluttering so freaking hard? Are you with me? Drop me a thumbs up in the comments if you have ever thought, why is this so hard? Why can't this just be easier? Because that's what we're going to talk about today. And I have some answers why it is hard and also what to do about it. Okay, because we want to be able to proceed forward. We want to be able to move forward. Otherwise, we're just talking about problems all day, and that gets a little bit old, don't you think? I think so too. It is raining cats and dogs around here, literally cats and dogs. So hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully the sound is going to cooperate with us today, and all the tech. Okay, so I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 reasons why I believe decluttering is hard. And I would love to hear which ones of these do apply most, which ones are most relevant to you. So as I'm going through these and we're talking about them, let me know in the comments which ones really stand out to you, because probably not all of them, right? You probably have like maybe 2 or 3 that are your top reasons, and someone else is going to have some different ones. Okay, really depending on kind of your journey and, like what your experience is. Okay, and before I get into this, we do have a series of 10-minute decluttering challenges that you can sign up for. They are totally free. I have put the link above this video, and let me just grab that link again. I'm going to drop it into the comments so that you all can have it. Hey, Karen, so good to see you. Okay. So you can sign up for the 10-minute challenges if you haven't done them yet, and they will get you moving. They will give you a little push, a little head start, and you can get your feet wet, okay? Because that is actually, and maybe that's the first one that we talk about, is that people are overwhelmed, right? People are overwhelmed by their stuff, which ironically makes it harder to let go. And so guess what happens? More stuff. It is a vicious cycle. If you are overwhelmed, it makes sense that you're probably not going to dig in and make a big change. And so the stuff increases in volume. You're overwhelmed, right? When we're overwhelmed, we shut down. This is a normal human reaction. When we are overwhelmed by a situation, we tend to shrink back and freeze, or maybe run away, like fight or flight. Okay, so if you're overwhelmed, you are in good company. Nothing wrong with you. You're totally normal. And this is a human reaction, right? But that's one reason why people do not, or why it's hard for people to declutter, just because they're overwhelmed, right? And what's the answer to that? What's the antidote? Well, the antidote is to zoom in, right? And not look at the big picture. Don't say my whole house is a disaster. Say, I'm going to work on this little corner. I'm going to work on this little drawer. Can I find 5 things to get rid of? Can I set the timer for 10 minutes and then work on something? That is literally the answer if you are feeling overwhelmed. Okay, and that's what our 10-minute challenges do. Okay, so that's the first one. The second item on my list is that we are valuing things that we have over things that we don't have. Okay, so let's say you've got, an iPad, right? You've got an iPad, and it's an iPad. You've had it for years, and it's yours. Okay, maybe it doesn't really work that well. Maybe the battery is pretty awful, and you have to plug it in all the time, right? But it is yours, and you have a lot of good memories, and you have a whole bunch of stories about this iPad. Now, this iPad that is yours, you are going to assign a whole lot more value to the one that is yours than to another iPad out in the world, somewhere else. If you saw the same iPad, right? If someone was like, I'm giving away an iPad, it doesn't really work that well, but do you want it? You'd probably be like, yeah, not really. Or if they said, I'm selling this iPad, do you want it? You'd probably be like, no, I'm good. I'm going to pass. But however, yours, which is in the same condition, has a whole lot more value because it is yours, right? This is a normal human thing. It's like the whole, one bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, right? Anything that is already yours is automatically elevated in your opinion. That's why we feel like our children are more attractive than other children, because they're our children, Our clutter is more important than other things out in the world. It is just automatic, right? We're inflating the value of something just because it is ours or just because it's in our house, right? So what do we do about that? Well, a lot of things. But first of all, you can say, would I buy this? Would I buy this item? I'm not using this item. Would I buy it again? Right? Do I actually believe that it has value, or am I just kind of going to my default? And if the answer is no, I wouldn't buy it again, I'm not really valuing it. And if I'm not valuing it, then what is it doing in my house? Right? We want to ask these questions. Okay. So that's another reason. Next reason. This is a big one. Let me know if this applies to you. Change is hard. Our brains are set up for consistency and safety. Part of your brain, its whole job, it's called the primitive brain. The part of the job of the primitive brain is to keep you safe, to keep you alive, really. And so that means it's always looking out for danger, and it doesn't like change. And if you say, we got to get rid of some of this stuff, we got a whole lot of stuff around here, your brain is going to throw up warning signals. It's going to be like, danger, danger, red lights are going to start going off. Your heart's going to start racing. And your brain's going to be like, no, this is different. This is change. We like these things. These things are important to us. And it's going to give you all these reasons why you should not change. Okay? Totally normal. If your brain is doing this for you, totally a normal human thing. Right? Because your brain doesn't know that you are not going to die if you get rid of the iPad that doesn't work. It thinks this is life or death. It doesn't understand there's a difference between letting go of some clutter and being chased by a mountain lion. Doesn't know the difference. So the thinking version of you, right? The prefrontal cortex needs to remind your primitive brain, actually, this is not life or death here. It just feels like it, but we're actually going to be okay. All right. And that gets back to doing 10-minute challenges. Those are little, and we can kind of tiptoe our way in and remind our brains before they start freaking out. We can do a little bit at a time. A little bit is not so scary. A little bit is not as dangerous. And once you get the hang of it, then it's not hard at all. Right? I mean, think about like the first time you started driving. If you learned to drive a car, it was probably terrifying at the beginning. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to die here. And you might. The first time you get behind the wheel of a car, you need to be properly terrified so that you don't do something rash, right? But now you get into a car, you've been driving for 30 years. You don't even think about it. It's easy, right? Because you have a lot of practice. And the same thing will happen with decluttering. The first time you try to do it, the first couple times you try to do it, it's scary. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of unknowns, and it feels really unfamiliar. That's all that's going on there. So we just want to get some practice, okay? The next reason that decluttering is hard is that we are primed to look out for mistakes, right? We don't want to make mistakes. Mistakes feel awful. Mistakes feel like failure, right? And from the time that we were brought up, from the time that we've been in school, for most of us, we've been taught, you don't want to get this wrong. We don't want to screw it up. And so we are trying not to screw things up. And if you let something go and then you decide later, I might need that, or I wanted that, or I wish I had kept that, it feels like a mistake. And so our brain is like, let's not go there. Let's just keep it all. That way we can avoid mistakes. But as you and I both know, the truth is we can't avoid mistakes. Mistakes are actually part of life. And if you hang on to everything, there's probably a much greater chance that you're not going to be able to find something when you need it. And I would say it's like a case of 100 to 1, right? If you have let go of the things that you are not using, guess what? It's so easy to find the things that you're looking for. It's not a guarantee, but it's a million times easier. Whereas if you keep let's say if you keep every last piece of paper that ever walks in the door of your house, how are you ever going to find that one, that one picture, that one school photo, that birth certificate when the time comes? Good luck, right? We are not avoiding mistakes and failure by hanging on to everything, but that's kind of our default, and that's what our brains are telling us to do. So we're primed for that as human beings. And so we have to counteract that, with a little bit of logic. Okay, that's the next reason. Okay, the next reason why it's so hard to let go is we are also primed to save for a rainy day. It's a little bit like, kind of the squirrel effect, right? Squirrels, they want to store things up for the winter. We want to hang on to things. Maybe you had family members, grandparents, parents who grew up during the Depression. And they're like, oh, we're going to need that. We don't want to waste things. We might need we might need that food or, those spare parts or the tools or the clothes, right? Well, yes, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they did need that stuff 100%. But right now, today, is anybody here going hungry? If you're watching this video and you have an iPhone, you probably don't need to hang on to that much food. You're probably not at risk of starvation. But we act like it, and our brains haven't caught up. And so it's just kind of our habit, it's our pattern to hang on to things just because that's what we do, right? But it doesn't mean that that's what we should continue to do going forward. So if we want to change, and come up with new habits and patterns, we just have to work at it. That's all there is, okay? And it's not, it doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong. Again, I'll say this over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with you if this is your habit. But you can decide that you want to change it up and that you want to start pursuing a different way. Okay. Again, 10-minute challenges are the way to ease into that. We don't want to shock you. We don't want you to go from having an overstuffed house to having a house with nothing in it. That's too much of a shock for the nervous system. So we want to do this gradually at a pace that that is manageable for you. Okay. Next reason. This is a good one. Let me know if this resonates with you. It's so hard to declutter because we don't trust ourselves. This one kind of hurts. This one hurts me. Have you ever made a decision? You're like, okay, I'm all in. This is what we're going to do. Here we go. And then someone said something to you and they're like, are you sure? Are you sure? Do you really want to do that? And you start thinking, I don't know. And you start doubting, right? You don't trust. You had a decision, but you don't trust yourself. And so you start wondering, and then you start going back on your decision because you're like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. And this goes along with the fear of making mistakes. I don't know if this is the right thing. So we go back to our default, which is to keep everything, right? If we don't want to mistakenly get rid of something, we're just going to hang on to it because we don't trust ourselves. And here's what I want to tell you about that. You can decide today, like right this very minute, you can decide to trust yourself and to have your own back. And in fact, I believe that it is so much more useful for you to learn that skill of trusting yourself and sticking to your decisions than it is to, maybe get rid of something that you need later. I would rather you go all in on trusting yourself and having your own back. And then maybe you kind of have to, it's hit or miss with the decluttering, but at least you trust yourself and then you have that certainty, right? That is a belief that you can develop within yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with what's going on outside in the world. It's all about how you feel about yourself. And you can just decide, I'm all in on myself and I'm going to back up my own decisions no matter what. Doesn't matter if tomorrow someone comes along and says, can I borrow that thing that you had? You'd be like, oh, sorry, I got rid of it. You're too late, right? We can do that. And it's really, really powerful when we have our own backs. This is something we work on a lot in the membership because I think it's a skill that a lot of people just don't have. They just never learned. And so this is something that we love to help reinforce and help people develop this skill because it's really powerful. When you have your own back, then you save so much time and energy, just moving forward as opposed to second guessing and negotiating with yourself and changing your mind. How much time do you waste changing your mind? It's a terrible waste of time. So I encourage you to just decide, I'm going to trust myself and I can change my mind, but then I got to trust myself with that new decision and not waffle back and forth. Really, really important. Okay. Couple more. I'm going to catch up with your comments here really quick. My brain thinks it's life or death if I think to get rid of an item. Yeah, Karen. You can just be like, actually, it's not. Brain, you're just a little confused. It's all fine. Okay. Another reason that it's so hard to let go is that some of you are afraid of losing memories. You don't want to lose the memories. You tell me I'm sentimental. You tell me this was my mother's favorite sweater. This was my child's, I don't know, whatever, baby blanket. And if I let it go, I'm giving away their childhood. I'm giving away my mother. I'm losing them all over again, right? We think the memory is somehow like infused in the item. And let me tell you, it's not. Memories are infused in your head. This is where memories are, I promise you. Not in the baby blanket, not in the old sweatshirt, not in the wedding dress, right? Those items are symbolic for sure. And I'm not saying you should get rid of everything that is sentimental, but I just want you to separate out the fact that, the memory is not in the thing. Why, how do we know that? Because you can think about any memory you want right now. You don't have to be looking at that item. You don't have to be at home. You could be driving in your car. You could be at the grocery store, and you could think about that memory, and instantly it's available to you. Okay, it doesn't matter where you are or what you do or do not have. Okay, now an item can be useful as a trigger for the memory, 100%. Right? You see the baby blanket and then you remember all the good things, but it's just a trigger. Okay. And so there are other ways to access that memory if you want. You could take a photo, you could write it down. There's lots of different ways. Or maybe you think, you know what, I can remember this person, or I can call up this memory, and maybe I only need a fraction of what I'm holding on to. Instead of keeping everything that loved one ever gave you, maybe you keep one thing or two. Maybe that would be enough. And that way you could even have more access to honor that person and love them and remember them. How interesting would that be, right? If you only kept the most important things that trigger those memories for you, and then you let the other things go, now you have so much more access to those memories because you're not dealing with a lot of clutter. Like, you could find those things. Right? So don't make the mistake of thinking that memories are residing somehow in an object. Okay? The memories are happening right here in your head. Okay? All right. And then I have one more. And this is a doozy. Are you ready for it? It is hard to let go, at least for some of us, because we are afraid of what other people will think. We are afraid someone is going to be disappointed if we let something go. Or we're afraid someone's going to get mad if we let something go, right? Or they're going to say something because we are supposed to hold on to this thing, okay? Now, what I want to tell you about this is we can't control other people's feelings. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you cannot control how someone else thinks and feels, right? That is all them, right? And I think we spend a lot of time worrying about other people's feelings and other people's thoughts, and not enough time thinking about our own feelings and thoughts. What if we tried to control our own thoughts and feelings, right? And let other people have their thoughts and feelings? I think that's so much more productive, right? Because you can control your thoughts. You can control your feelings. You have influence over them because they're happening in your head, right? And also, why are we trying to control other people's thoughts if we're not doing a good job at managing our own? Right? You see, it's totally backwards. So if this is happening for you, you just want to notice that this is happening. I'm keeping this because I don't want so-and-so to get mad at me, right? And just own that, right? At least if you're going to own it, you're being honest. And maybe you decide, you know what, this person is actually mad anyways, right? And so me keeping this thing or not keeping it, it's not really changing how they're feeling. It's all in their heads anyways. It's all their thoughts. And so I can make a decision that's going to work best for me, and something that I feel good about. And then maybe they'll come along with me, or maybe they won't. Sometimes we're afraid of something that isn't even going to happen. Has it ever happened to you? Like you think, oh my gosh, my family's going to be so upset about this. And then you tell them and they're like, oh, okay. Right. And there's no blow up. There's no reaction. Right? We always kind of go to the worst case scenario, but we don't actually know that that's going to happen, right? For sure. And even if it does, again, that's happening inside their head, and it's not actually based on what you are doing. Your actions are not creating their feelings. Their thoughts are creating their feelings. And it's really important to make that distinction. We always say, don't make a decision and don't expect a negative motivation, like I'm afraid, right? I'm going to keep this because I'm afraid. That's a negative reason. It's not going to create a positive outcome. Okay, so I can't enjoy this item if I'm keeping it out of fear or out of guilt or, or something like that. We want to have positive reasons to create positive outcomes, right? And we can't mix and match. It doesn't work. It's almost like, it's like math, right? Negative plus a negative. Well, anyway, I'm not going to go there, but you know what I mean, right? We want to have positive motivation behind our actions, right? And that can be hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It can be hard to say, I'm letting this go, and I hear you, you're unhappy about this, right? We can do that. And we work on that in the membership as well. We have a whole course on relationships because this does come up a whole lot. People are unhappy about the choices that you make, right? And so how do you deal with that? And how do you learn to say no and trust yourself and have your own back and let them have their own back? Okay, so those are all kinds of things that we go over. Now, why am I talking about this? Why are we going into this depth? You'll see a lot of other, you'll see a lot of like checklists on Pinterest or maybe Instagram. There's all kinds of things, like just declutter these 10 things and, you're going to be off to the races. And we love that. I love that too. Everyone loves a good list. But I think it's so important to dig way deeper than that. Okay. You guys know I am a life coach, and so we infuse life coaching and psychology into everything that we do. Because if it was just about checklists, then you wouldn't need to talk about it. You wouldn't need to dig into like, why is this so hard? It wouldn't be hard. You'd just be like, oh, give me the right list and I'll be done. But that's not the way it works, right? If it were simple as needing a list, no one would have a cluttered house. Like we would all be done by now. And we all know that it's not. It's way more emotional than, than just needing some direction. So much more. It's so much deeper. And in fact, we had a coaching call yesterday in the membership, and one of my members said, this decluttering thing actually like applies to all of life. And I was like, yes, it does, right? It really does, because we get into motivation and procrastination and overwhelm, and, belief in yourself. I mean, how much more fundamental can you get, right? So the cool thing is that when you do declutter in these ways, right? And when you are plugged in here to the way we do things, your whole life changes. And I'm not exaggerating. So not only does your house look better and your house gets cleaned up, but you feel better and you have more confidence and you just have like a better outlook on life. We have one member in the membership. She said she had been having panic attacks regularly before she joined. And since she joined, it was a couple months, she hasn't had one. Like they were just gone. Isn't that amazing? So don't underestimate the impact that decluttering, especially when you are addressing the emotional needs at the same time, don't underestimate the effect that it can have on your mental well-being, because it is tremendous, tremendous. Now, again, we don't want you to do it too fast. I don't want you to come in with shovels and just like scoop everything out and throw it all away. Don't do that. We don't want to do things under obligation, and we don't want to do things at a pace that your nervous system can't handle, right? So we want to do it with care. We want to do it with love and compassion, right? We want to learn how to let go of the self-judgment and do it in a way that's sustainable, right? I don't want you to declutter your house and a month later, it's right back where you started. Like, what good is that? That's not going to help you. In fact, you're probably going to be worse off if that is the case, right? So we want to do things methodically and gently at a pace that's going to work out for you. Okay. So if you haven't done our 10-minute challenges, please make sure to sign up for those. They're totally free. The link is above this video. And also I will drop it in the comments here. And when you do that, you will get on our email list. We have a bunch of things coming up in the next couple of months, and we will let you know about those as well. All right, everyone, that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoy this. Let me know, how's this working out for you? Let me know which tip is the most helpful for you. Okay, everyone, take care. I'll talk to you soon.